Rewired addiction.
When I quit working in the clubs, I had to have a way to support my habit. So I had to start jumping in and out of cars.
It's about to get real in this motherfucker.
I know I'm being silly, but this is some serious street stuff. My girl Darlene's gonna take you down through the pits of hell and literally show you what addiction can take you to. Thankfully, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Some of the stuff you're gonna hear is controversial, but I love this girl so much because she just tells it like it was. Please, if you're triggered easily, you do not want to watch this. But if you can handle some heavy real life stuff, this is a video you might want to watch and enjoy this testimony. Guys, Darlene's a friend of mine. Please show her love, no judgment. If you or a loved one is struggling right now, I put my number out there so you can call me right now. Text me right now. Don't wait. This shit will kill you. This is real. So reach out, get help, and try and do something about it. Darlene owns her own Mary Kay business. Get some makeup from her. And if you're a guy, man, hit her up. She'll coach you in the right direction to help you get the right makeup for your girl. Show her some love because we need to help each other out. Also, she has art. She sells art. You will fall in love with this girl when you realize the stuff she's been through and she's made it out of. Please go check her out in the description of my videos and hit that bell next to that subscribe button and like this because, guys, a lot of people aren't getting notified about my YouTube videos.
Let's get real in this motherfucker. Thugger.
All right, y'all. Darlene, I'm glad to see you.
I'm glad to see you.
Look, we've known each other for some time now, not too long, and you know I have your back. You know that you've got my back, and you know a little bit about my channel here. So you're actually the first person, a female, that I get to interview for my channel and to tell somewhat of your story because I know that you have a pretty powerful story to share with everybody here. And I'd like to go back with you if we can. And I want to ask a simple question and we'll start going further into this, progressively getting to where you are today. Can you go back in time and maybe what you think from your own experiences led you into the addiction and the street life?
Trauma. I think it's trauma. I think every addict is different. That no two of us are alike because if you sit down and talk to 1,000,000 addicts, no two are ever going to tell the same story because my husband is an addict. Neither one of us have any of the same characteristics, triggers, things that set us off, and it's something I've been trying to figure out for 18 years. So I've been September 24th was 15 years for me. And I just realized it at lunchtime. I was like, holy cow, I've been on the street for 15 years. I grew up in a religious home, but my granddaddy was the greatest man of God to this day that I ever met. Like, I never heard him say anything bad about anybody. He was very soft-spoken. He was a carpenter. He retired a captain in the Army. Respected him with the utmost. I had a very abusive father. And I've seen my granddaddy just beat my daddy in the ground and get in the car crying and never say a word about it and say, well, let's go home now. Just a great guy. I can't say enough good things about him. So my mother passed when I was 20 years old. And that's when the downward spiral started because my grandmother was not nice and did not like me, and she mistreated my children when I was around. So 17 years old, I graduated with a baby on my hip. I had all three by 21. My mother died the year before I had my youngest son. So I kind of bounced from place to place. And until 7 years ago, I've been homeless most of my life. It feels like, always sleeping on people's couches. Gay people took me in for 10 years. I've stayed in some of the fanciest places ever because they never would let me sleep in the street. So trauma, I believe, I didn't have her. I had an ex-husband that wouldn't pay child support. I raised all three kids with no help. And there came a day where I was like, either you're going to have to come help me or I'm going to come move in with all these kids, and it's going to take you 90 days to get me out because you know I'm crazy. So finally he just came to me. I'm like, you're putting me in a position where I'm having to teach our kids how to be drug dealers because we got nothing. So he finally came to me and he's like, let me help you. I had an amazing wife. I had no idea that 10 years was going to pass and my kids were going to grow up during that time. So I was in a place where, you know, I'd never not had my kids. Like my oldest son is mine and the two babies are my first husband's. And I'd never not had my kids. And that was I was 27 years old before I got in a car and went anywhere by myself. It was crazy. Because I'd always had, you know, kids to take care of, and I always had to get a babysitter or go pick somebody up or give somebody instructions. So it just came to a place where I was in a place of hopelessness, actually, because I feel like my life's all screwed up. I can't give my kids a place to live. They stayed with my grandmother. Like my grandmother wasn't nice to me, but she was so good to my kids. She was, she didn't want a stripper living in her house and the church knowing about it.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you had traumas growing up. We all have. In my experience, most of us addicts have dealt with something like that. So my, I guess a next follow-up question, because I want to get to the end yet. We got to get into the juicy.
Right, yeah.
And so the next question I have for you would be, when growing up, I'm sure you dealt with trying to figure out who you were, didn't know who we were. You end up on the streets. You told me a little bit prior to us getting on here, the struggle there, you homelessness, you were doing things to keep a habit going. What were your choice drugs? What were some of the things you were doing? Maybe go into some of the darkness if you don't mind.
Dancers are the most at-risk females on the face of the planet, because everything in the club is free and everybody treats drugs like they're legal. You know, like you go into a club and you know everybody that works there, everybody's getting high. So, you know, I was always a pothead. I always loved pot, still think pot's amazing. I don't have a problem with people that use marijuana. It's, you know, it's a great healer that we're discovering. And when they decriminalize it, the world will be a better place. Because no potheads have ever killed each other over a bag of weed. But in the clubs, it's like nowadays it's something different. But like, for instance, it started out with, you know, everybody experiments. Like when we were young adults, we were experimenting with acid. We're smoking weed. We're doing cocaine because cocaine was actually a clean, better drug then. Speed was like, that's what all the dirty junkies did, you know. And my mom always taught me about, she's always like, I don't care what you ever do in life, don't ever put a needle in your arm because junkies are dirty. And that put this thing in the back of my mind. So later, I had a little boyfriend, and I have this sense of naivety that no one has ever been able to touch. And I'm not dumb, but sometimes I just let things go past me so I don't have to be angry at people. Because when I was in the clubs, I learned how to be someone else so that Darlene wasn't always offended and wanting to go take a shower and hurt and couldn't believe people would say those kind of things to her. So that's where Sparky stepped in. And it was really crazy because I didn't know there was a difference until my best girlfriend told me. She's like, you know what? I love you. I think you're an amazing person. She said, but I hate that bitch you are in the club. Because it had to be that way. Like, I'm this mom of these 3 beautiful little boys, and I'm fixing to go do this thing that makes me compare myself to everyone, who makes me, you know, like, I didn't know how to make money until I was strung out on dope. Like, no one teaches you those things because as women, we're terrible. Like, we're pitted against one another as enemies and foes all our lives. Like, we're told this is what's beautiful. This is what's beautiful. If you're not this, you're not this. You know, and because of that, we always feel like we're in competition with one another. And it's really, really sad because women, like, we empower everyone but ourselves and each other is what it comes down to. Like, for instance, all right, so fast forward, I'm in the clubs. I'm the only grown up. Like, most of the girls I'm working with are like 10. I mean, they're younger than me. I was 27 years old before I started stripping. Most of those girls, some of them weren't even old enough to drink. And there was one girl, I'll never forget her. It was so sad. I ended up strung out on crack. Crack ended up being my drug of choice. And I ended up in the streets and living in a tent in the woods. I spent 3.5 years in the woods. I was so messed up on dope that I had my kid fucked up with me. I think he was 15 to 19 at the time. So what a great mother I was during that time. And so I remember this one girl, her name was Tori. I'll never forget her as long as I live. Like, all the women I've known, I bet you I've known thousands of women. I bet you I've seen more naked women than most men have. Because I worked in all these clubs and I just loved them, and I wanted them to know who they were, because they don't know who they are. They're these young girls. They want to be desirable. They want to be loved. They want to be beautiful, and they don't know how to feel those things about themselves sometimes. So this one girl, Tori was 20 years old. She was a big, long-legged blonde, like natural blonde, bless her heart, dingy as all get out. Looks like she's fixing to fall down the whole time she's on stage. And they loved it. Like, she made so much money, it was ridiculous. Because she just never really took on the same persona that everybody else did. Because, you know, we mimic people in life. We want to be like people we admire, and we want to be what we find is desirable. And about 6 months after I quit the clubs, they put me out because it wasn't cool to smoke crack, but it was okay to be a speed dealer and all those other things. So I saw her. It was terrible. She was standing in front of Starship on Fulton Industrial Boulevard. I ended up on the west side of Atlanta on Fulton Industrial Boulevard, and she wasn't pretty anymore. And her teeth weren't pretty anymore. And she was out there trying to do the same thing I was doing, but she had some little boy standing with her. And that image will stay with me the rest of my life, that pretty little girl got caught up in all that bullshit that goes on in the clubs, and she'll never be pretty again because of what it did to her as a person.
So you were out on the streets, and this is very complex. What happened here, going through the clubs, you know, getting to where you are. My question is, can you tell me a few of the worst things that maybe you've done to get drugs that you can recall of course, and then we'll go from there.
When I quit working in the clubs, I had to have a way to support my habit. So I had to start jumping in and out of cars. And the streets don't love you. Nobody in the streets love you. I don't care what they say. When it comes down to it, that you're starving and you're hungry, the one that'll buy you something to drink, that person really loves you. I used to test folks that way. I'd be like, I'd give you anything I had, but I would test you later. Like, I would test the dope boys. I'd be like, hey man, why don't you buy me a soda pop? And if he would go in the store and buy me a soda pop, I made sure every time I saw him to spend money with him. Or I'd say, if I, you know, like somebody that I'd given something to, I would say, hey man, you got a cigarette? And if they come at me crazy about a dang cigarette, they couldn't get nothing else from me for the rest of the time they ever knew me. And they never even knew that. It was just like little things I did. So I jumped in and out of cars. I was a prostitute. And when I met my husband, it was crazy. Like, people don't believe in love at first sight. I love that man. And he was standing way down the street in the dark. I hadn't even seen his face yet. And I'm like, Manola, who's that big, tall drink of water standing down the street? I didn't even know he heard me say that till about 6 months ago. He said, I heard you, girl. And she's like, baby, you don't know Murphy. And it was over, dude. It was over. So I meet this man, and he thinks I'm crazy as hell because I keep telling him I'm going to be your wife one day. He's like, girl, you're crazy as hell. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, man, I'm going to be your wife. So here we are 18 years later, and I'm his wife. So when I meet him, you know, like I'm instantly in love with this person. I had to tell him, I'm like, look, man, I don't trick them. I don't lie to them. I don't steal from them. I give them what they want. And if they're not happy, they can have $10 back so that they don't run me over when I'm walking down the street later on. Because, I mean, I knew girls that rip people off all the time, and I never could understand that. I'm like, you're walking down the street, and he's going to drive past you. I don't see how you're still in this world being as dirty as you are to people, and why somebody hadn't run your ass over yet for just being dirty and low down. So I had to tell him, I give them what they want, man. It takes 10 minutes. Everybody's happy. I go on about my business and get my stuff.
Yeah, I totally relate in terms of a struggle. I mean, as a man, I didn't have to do that. I could see why people would. It's a different thing for females, which you're bringing that dynamics in because you guys have something that men do want. And it is. I guess now we've gotten, without going too deep into some of these things, because you can only say so much without, going into really dark private conversation. My question is, what happened when you were out in the streets? Something seriously happened that caused you to start seeing, like, let me give life a chance. Let me try this. What happened to you?
It started with my husband, like him, and my oldest son's out there with me. It was so funny because my oldest son, everybody thought he was my husband. And he's my kid. It was really crazy. Like, I've seen people just totally not believe. I'm like, talking about my old man. I'm like, I don't have an old man. This is my son. And that it would just freak them out so bad that he was my kid. And he's still a cock blocker, and I'm married. Like, he's just a very aggressive kind of person. He's very competitive, real strong-willed. Like, my son, if you shovel dirt with him, he's going to try to out-shovel you regardless. He don't care. It's just the way he is. And I'm glad to report that he's not struggled. He got in some trouble because he was being stupid and forgot where he came from. But I remember sitting in the woods one day getting high with him thinking, oh, look what I've done to my kid. My kid's going to be nothing but a junkie his whole life, and it's all my fault.
And I want to say something there because our audience is seeing this. This was a part that I was kind of worried about even leaving in, but I think it's important that people understand when you're in that state of mind, morals really don't play a part.
You don't have any. You have to survive. Like, you have to eat. You have to get money to get high. You have to find ways to get clean. You don't. No, there's no morals. Like, when I looked back, I was so apologetic to my sons, and they were like, Mama, don't know. The one thing that you were with us is you weren't fake about it. I was always open and honest with them about it. I didn't try to hide it because, I mean, what's the point? Like, there came a place in it where, like, I'd spend all my money. We don't have nothing. We done spend all the money getting high. And I want to die because I feel so bad about this is what we did with all the money. But I don't have the courage to step out in front of a bus or a diesel truck. So I had to come to a place where I accepted it, or I had to kill myself. And I think that's the one thing that may happen to all of us, is at some point we have to accept it or we have to die. And you can't die. The drug isn't even killing you. And there was a bootlegger named Mr. Bobby. He always called me Sparkle. And there were several times that had he not come out his door and said what he said to me, I'd have probably went and killed myself. I felt that bad about it. And that only lasted for a while because I just had to come to a place of accepting it. And he would say, Sparkle, we're together. If you need anything, you come let me know. And he was good as gold to us the whole time. So I came to a place of acceptance. And I remember one morning I'm talking to this little girl that's with me, and I'm like, come on, let's go get some rocks. And she's like, you make it sound like it's Christmas. And I'm like, you ain't got a job. She's like, no. I'm like, you're out here to get high. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, well, hell, you might as well have some fun at it, or try to make yourself think that it's some kind of fun. Otherwise, you got to roll over and die. So I came to a place of acceptance with it where I wasn't ashamed. And it embarrasses some people even today that I'm so open and honest about it, because that's what got me better. Like, I'd go in the rooms, oh my God. They're like, well, keep working it because it works. There's a lot of negativity that goes on in those rooms. And if you're not like them, then you're not doing it right. Or you weren't an addict. I've had people tell me, well, you probably weren't an addict. I'm like, excuse me? I lived in a tent in the woods for 3.5 years and sold my ass to get high. Now, do you think normal, non-addicted people do those kinds of things?
No.
No, they don't. So it just came to a place where this guy came along that helped my kid out. After I met my husband, all this weird stuff started happening. Like, they would walk off from me and some weirdo would pull up, and I'd never been afraid, like, ever. I lived in a tent in the damn woods, for God's sake. I'd talk shit to everybody. If you want to come kill me, come kill me. You'd be doing me a favor. And people would be like, I'm not going up there. There's snakes in the woods, or I ain't going up there because you got them dogs. And it was just all kind of crazy stuff. But after I met my husband, I started seeing my mortality. And I started seeing that, like, anybody could take me off with them and not bring me back. And nobody was going to come look for me because they're all stuck. And in the street, it's like, give me $5 and I'll go get her for you. Or she got a room, or she's sitting in jail somewhere and they're still trying to get something from you because you're looking for that person. Like, I've been gone 15 years. You could go out there today and ask somebody about Sparky, and they're going to flat out tell you, give me $5 and I'll go get her for you. It's so sad. So, like, all these things that never bothered me before, like, they'd walk off. They'd, like, walk up the street to go get something to drink or something. And some dude would pull up on me and say something weird that made me think, well, wait a minute, do I want to do this or not? And, like, there's been times where I turned down everybody all night long. Just kept sitting in the store where I'm like, look here, partner, you can come see me tomorrow. And nobody ever picked me up until after it was dark. Like, I could look like $1 million and walk around looking stupid all day, and nobody ever picked me up until after it was dark and I looked like a chicken head. It was crazy.
So what happened that got you clean and off the streets?
Well, I've deconstructed, but the only explanation I have for it is it had to be God. It had to be, because I didn't see a way out. Like, I didn't see a way for my kid to ever be better. I didn't see any of this life I have now. This guy came along. His name is Randy. And Randy still helps addicts out. Like, he ended up marrying a girl that's a whole nother can of worms. But he helped out people that were in the streets, and he has a heart for people that are in the streets. And he had this white boxer named Buddy. And I'm a huge dog lover. Like, I'm always going to have dogs. I had dogs when I was in the streets. And I fell in love with this dog. So, like, Randy would come and get me. And I was sick at the time. I ended up with staph. And I ended up in the hospital. And I was so messed up on dope that I cut my head open. Like, if you'll look, one side, I think it's this side of my head. If you look real close, there's a scar right there where, dude, I was so messed up on dope that I took a knife and cut my head open trying to get whatever was in there out. It was that bad. So Randy started coming around, and he was just good as gold to me. Like, he would feed me. I've had tricks say, you're always talking about some food. And I'm like, yeah, don't call me a crackhead. I'm hungry. Feed me something. Because a lot of people didn't know that I was a drug addict. Like, they'd come get, like, a white girl on the street. Oh my God, she's the gold mine, and everybody wants the white girl, right? So they would come get me, and I'd be like, how much money do they have? And they're like, well, they don't have any money. I'm like, no, I'm not a babysitter. I'm trying to get some money so I can go do my own thing separate from this stuff. So if they don't have any money, don't come get me. And every time somebody came and got me and I fell for that, I ended up getting screwed over. Like, one time I got $200 worth of fake $20 bills. Yeah.
And you already have it hard enough in there doing what you're doing to survive. So, Darlene, let's shift this conversation from the
Okay.
streets to your life coming
Now,
out into now. Yeah, like
okay.
it's better now.
Randy ran a recovery house and lived with this dude named JT. And JT put a face on God I could live with. Like JT used to live in a car in the back of the dope man's house for like years and years and years, but couldn't even go knock on the dude's door. So there was a ministry called Set Free that some dude out in California started. He was a motorcyclist. He started it for homeless people, alcoholics, and drug addicts. And they don't advertise. Everything's word of mouth. It doesn't cost you anything to go there. The problem with recovery is it's a market. And if you don't have money, oh well. If you don't have insurance, oh well. And I was on disability, so I had money coming in, and I had a guy drop me off at Ridgeview one morning, and it's $1,600 a day. Who the hell has $1,600 a day to pay for recovery? So Randy came along, and he just kept coming around and helping me, and he's like, look, if you want to get out of the streets, winter was coming. He said, if you want to get out of the streets, I got somewhere I can send you. And this dude had come along, and my kid's not in the street with me anymore. And if my kid's not in the street, there's really no reason for me to stay in the street. And he knows if he comes back in the street, mama's going to stay in the street. So, so he's like, you can go over here. If you do 30 days at the farm, you can come live at the house. So he ships me off. It was crazy. Like, I think I slept maybe 2 weeks when I was getting ready to go. I don't remember how long I was there, but I know that everybody kept talking about me sleeping. And the only other incident I remember like that was, dude, like I laid down one Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up at 2 a.m. Saturday. And I think my dogs thought I had died because I lived in a hotel room. And as soon as I sat up out of the bed, everybody in the room's like, and the dogs started jumping on me. And I'm like, holy shit, the dogs thought I died, and they're just letting me lay here. So one of the girls had come in, and she's like, is she alive? Like, they said I didn't even get up and go to the bathroom.
It's funny. I actually never did crack, but I was on Adderall and was staying up 5-6 days at a time. And I remember sleeping like that. Today, it sounds like, well, obviously I know your life's better today. You're still with your husband. Everything is good. You're running your own business now, doing the Mary Kay and the art, which, by the way, I want everybody to know they need to come help you out for sure.
Help me.
Yeah, because your story is powerful. I had one question when you got out. Did some of you miss the streets? Like, is there that part of you, you know what I'm saying? When there's like two wolves, we have a good wolf and a bad wolf. Was there somewhat of an addiction to living that lifestyle on the street that you had to let go of? Was that hard to let go of?
I got religious. That's another whole. I got religious. That's another whole story. But I kept going back. Like, my husband is fixing in January. My husband has his first complete year of sobriety. Like, and I'm so proud of him because it's taken. Like, that's another story too, you know what I'm saying? But I would go back. Like, I went to church down there. I have friends that have come out of the street because I just kept telling them, dude, you don't have to stay down here. You don't have to do this. I know it feels like you have to do this, but I love you, and I'm standing here so that you can see you don't have to do this, and you don't have to stay down here. So I did have several friends follow me out, but like, we're not in. We love one another and we're still friends, but like, we don't see each other. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, I relapsed one time. It was at Christmas. My husband was in jail. I didn't show up for Christmas with the stepson. And I was always open with my kids. I'm like, look here, if I ever relapse, you're going to know I'm fixing to go relapse. You're going to know, and you're going to have an opportunity to try to talk me out of it, but I'm never going to hide this from y'all. And when I relapsed, they knew. Like, they didn't know what to say. I'm like, why didn't you say something? And they're like, you were going to do it. And there was nothing we could, like, one of them drove me to go and get the dope. And they were like, we knew where you were going when you got in the car. And so I didn't show up for Christmas. And it was terrible. Like, it was terrible. Like, I hated myself for ruining my clean time. I felt like I had been hit by a Mack truck. Like, my body felt bad. My mind felt bad. It took forever to forgive myself for that because I'd been working so hard to not do that.
I tell a lot of people,
tired of being sick and tired.
There's a lot of shame when you do that because you have this stigma. It's like you've built up this levels of like, and then all that collapses when you relapse, and then you think, what are they going to think of me? Everything, and then what you think of yourself. So I totally get it. I totally get it.
That's like this huge thing that comes down on you. Like, you're standing in the shower and you have all these images, and that goes, like, I don't have that anymore. Like, I don't even, like, dude, I've been in the trap with tons of money. Never, ever, ever crosses my mind to get high. Ever. Because I know how the tape plays out. This little boy I met used to tell me, play the tape out. Think about what the tape looks like when it plays all the way out. And I was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
No, sir. No. Let's not even play the tape. Don't even use that because it's not a pretty picture for a woman.
Yeah.
It's ugly for everybody, but a woman in the street, everybody wants something from her. They don't want to give her anything, and she's a piece of shit because she's in the street.
Well, Darlene, I definitely don't think you are that. And I want to say that I can relate in so many ways as a father. And I want to say this for our audience because what you've said is probably very heavy for some to accept. And I've seen this happen on other people's channels where they just berate the person for being honest for what you've done, with your kid or getting high with your kid or this lifestyle. Well, I'll tell you, when my son was very little, we used to smoke pot in the house. Now, whatever your view of pot is, to me, that doesn't matter. I think it works for some people and some I think it doesn't. But
right.
I was very addicted to it, and to the point where it was habitual. All I did was smoke. And I'm hotboxing my house with my child in there with me.
Right.
Or we're rolling on ecstasy and the kids running around in the living room while we're tweaked out of our mind taking ecstasy. Or I'm hiding plates with crushed up pills or hiding syringes that I was using to shoot up heroin in my house.
Right.
And my kid might find a bag of like unused syringes, and he's running around, and his mom sees him
She freaks out, right.
Yeah, and I never, ever meant or intended any harm for my child or anything like that. But when you absolutely lose control of your own function in your mind and you don't know what's next, it's so hard to explain. People who haven't done it don't understand it. It's easy to judge. It's very easy.
Oh my God. Yeah. The chick that my boy's married to right now, like, he's got dementia, he's got cancer, he's dying. She's going through his money, man, because she's still getting high and he's codependent. And it's hard not to be angry with her because I'm like, dude, this man loves you and you're just using him up. And he's not going to have anything when the end of his life comes because he fell in love with an addict. I'll tell you one thing, though. The one thing in all of it that, like, man, be encouraged, because even when you're messing up like that, you're showing your kids what kind of people they don't want to be. And that was like, I apologized to my kids, and they're like, Mom, you were still mom. You still loved us. You still hugged us. You still made sure we ate. And you showed us what we don't want to do with our lives. And if you had not been open and honest about it, we all might be messed up now too. And that was like a light at the end of the tunnel, because I'm like, I'm so sorry that I wasn't equipped and that, you know, I didn't have a support system and I was so young and I really didn't know any better. And in the end, I taught my sons what kind of people they didn't want to be. And to me, man, that's more powerful than saying, hey, you should be like this and you should do this and this is how you should live your life and this is what kind of man I want you to become. They got to make their own decision about what kind of man to become and to make better choices.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad you see it positively and you look at the outlook of this in a good way, because, you know, we can beat ourselves up for the rest of our life for things we've done in the past, but moving forward, I know that you're an amazing mother. I know you're an amazing person. You do your best to help other people and show love and do what you can there. This is a very tough thing that you shared with us today. Is there anything you'd like to give to someone out there who might be struggling right now going through it?
Man, quit beating yourself up. Just breathe. Just breathe. You know, be in the moment and breathe, and stop beating yourself to death over something that you've obviously lost control of. Because there will come a day where you can just step back and go, damn, man, I'm not that person anymore. That's a good feeling. And dude, I want to thank you. I really do. You have been such a lifeline to me. Like, Derek is the lifeline, you guys. Like, I try to be that for people. I make myself available to people. Everybody I know that's struggling has my telephone number. They know, dude, you can call me in the middle of the night. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're fucked up. I don't care if you're fixing to go to jail. If you need somebody to talk to, call me. And like, you've reached out to me in moments where I was really hurting, and it was like, damn, man, all these people I know, and there was Derek, and Derek's like, look, man, it's not that serious. I love you, and it's okay, and you're going to make it. And that's huge, because even the strong and powerful need lifelines, and I don't have a whole lot of lifelines in my life right this second. Wow. So there's been times when you pull me back into the light where, like, dude, I was drowning. I'm like, I just can't believe all these things are happening. And it's not struggling with drugs. It's like everything else that goes on in life.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, we press pain down, we push it away, we try to act like we're okay. And that works for a little while, and then it all comes and gets you. And when somebody comes out of the darkness and is like, hey, man, hit me up so I can talk to you, man, people don't understand how, like, if you have a lifeline, use your damn lifeline, man. That's going to save your life. Those people don't care. Like, we always think about, oh, well, I don't want to bother them. If you wake me up in the middle of the night, I'm going to be a bitch the first 2 or 3 minutes, but I love you, and I'm not going to bitch at you about waking me up in the middle of the night. I'm just a grouchy ass bitch when I first wake up, and I hate to be woke up by the phone. But if somebody I love is going through something and they need somebody to talk to, man, I'm that person. Because I got a good word for you. I've been there. I know how bad it is. And I know how hard it is when you're still letting yourself struggle with it up here, and you don't have to. But you haven't learned how to not struggle there. You know what I'm saying? Like, we struggle with it. I never struggled with it. People are like, well, maybe you weren't addicted. I'm like, I made up my damn mind that I didn't want to be strung out anymore. I didn't want to live in the street anymore. I didn't want to live in a tent and step out and water up to my ankles because it's been raining 3 days. I didn't want to let people use me up as a person anymore to do something that wasn't making me happy in the first place. So I never struggled with it after I relapsed. And relapse is part of recovery. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, my husband's been relapsing for 18 years.
Yeah.
Like, walking off of everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's almost got a year now. It's amazing that you say that, because, you know, people always on my channel, they have a hard time. Is it a disease? Is it a choice? Well, I think there is a progressive illness that happens here. At the same time, when you get sick and tired, if you didn't have support, though, the odds of you being successful would have been probably less. You know what I mean? We need
I would be dead.
Right.
I would be dead. They killed white girls down there every day of the week. Nobody ever heard about it. It never made the news. The police don't even half of them don't do reports on people that die down there. And all the girls that I was in the streets with, all but 2 of them, they're dead. They're dead. Somebody, I mean, I loaned a girl my shoes once. It was so sad. I'm like, look here, girlfriend, you better bring me my shoes back, because every time somebody got a pair of my shoes, I didn't get them back. And I absolutely love this pair, and it's stupid and silly, but they were these cute little sandals that have flowers on the feet of them. They're brown, and she was always good to me. Like, she's fed me. She was one of the people that fed me. Feeding me was important, because when I was in the streets, feeding me was showing me love, because nobody loves you. Everybody wants to use you, and they don't want to give you what you want for using you. And so feeding me was love, and she had fed me before. And I want you to know that girl got in a truck with a dude she knew that she'd known for years, and another guy, and they killed her and threw her out on the side of the highway, and I never got my shoes back. So I would be dead. I know for a fact that I would not be here to have this conversation with you today had someone not come along and offered me some help. And see, when people come and offer you what you want, you always have that little voice that goes, well, we'll go in a minute, but let's go get one more.
Don't
and I started telling that voice to fuck off. That one more got me stuck 6 months, a year. I mean, like that one more kept getting me stuck. And it would say, come on, we'll go get one more and then we'll leave. And I'm like, no, I got to go now. The day I left the streets was a hurricane. It's so funny. There was it was Hurricane Hugo. Was it Hugo or Matthew that blew through in 2004?
I don't remember.
Anyways, there was a hurricane, so I go back out there to tell some people goodbye. And the person that I went out there to tell goodbye to was nasty as hell to me. He's like, just go on and get up out of here, Sparky. And I'm like, I'm going. He's like, don't come back. Well, he's better. He's one of the ones that followed me out. I want you to know I'm so mad and so ashamed. I don't want to call anybody to come get me. And this is how it worked out. Every girl that was on the street got rounded up that day. I don't know why the police didn't pick me up. I was the only girl. I mean, I watched them. And that was scary, dude. I could disappear like that. I knew all the trails in the woods. It didn't matter if I had shoes on or not. They picked up every single girl in the 24 hours that I was in the street. And when I called the house to get somebody to get me, and he's like, well, what the hell are you doing out there for? And I'm like, come get me. I'm ready to go. And I walked home. I walked halfway home before I would call again for somebody to come pick me up. And I remember walking through this field that I used to cut through, and water was up past my knees. I had to turn around and walk back 2 blocks. And I was so ashamed. And they're just like, don't come back. And I'm like, fuck y'all, I'm not coming back. Y'all suck. I hate y'all.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad you made it out, Darlene.
Yeah.
And you're sharing your testimony, and I know it's a tough one, and it's rough. It's one of those that you know, I'm glad you're alive today to share this. And I appreciate you joining me here. We got to have you back again, and we'll do another one.
Yeah, you need some female flavor, brother.
We're bringing it. We're bringing it. We are. But I love you.
You know, we move on with our lives, and a lot of women won't talk about it because, you know, we were already stigmatized to start with. So.
Well, I'm glad you're a voice. You're speaking up. And
I love you, man.
I love you too. Boy. Yeah, and you know I'm here. Anytime you need me, you know, give me a shout. And that goes for anybody who's out there struggling. Make sure you guys reach out to me. You know, I'm here. My number's, you know, right here at the intro of the video. So make sure you guys reach out if you need me. And I love you guys.
That's mine too. So whatever's clever, man. Whatever's clever. If you're out there and you're struggling, just keep going, man. Just keep going.
Don't give up.
No, gosh, no. Life is too damn good on this side.
Yeah.
I get up some days and I'm like, oh man, this is so good. What in the world was I ever thinking?
I try to tell that in my videos too. So. Yeah, I'm glad you're coming through and showing that.
I appreciate it.
Tell everybody bye.
Bye, love you.
Love you guys.